Hello everyone, it's me, Juan Giving Forward, back to the video today we're going to be doing a film theory video on something I really wanted to watch. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I really enjoy the movie, guys. I really do. I really do enjoy it a lot. So the reason why we didn't do this is because I didn't want to get spoiled, and honestly, Kevin told me not to do the video until we saw it. We watched it, and it was great, guys. It was great. I cannot wait for Beyond the Spider-Verse. So now that we finally got that out of the way, we're going to be doing a reaction video to Film Theory. I know it's a little bit overdue when we got new film theories down the line, but I wanted to do this because we finally got to watch the movie. So without further ado, let's do this right now.
You know, in a movie that's wild enough to include a T-Rex Spider-Man, a cat Spider-Man, a Lego Spider-Man, and Peter Parked Car the Spider-Mobile, you'd think they'd be smart enough to include literally the single best Spider-Man ever put to screen. I am, of course, talking about Spider-Man, the Japanese Sentai Spider-Man with the single best costume, a giant robot. He's also got himself a theme song that slaps.
Spider-Man.
We were robbed, I tell you. Robbed. Robbed!
Yeah, you were right.
Hello.
Yeah, you were right. I was promised a Japanese Spider-Man. They were literally saying that there was going to be a Japanese Spider-Man, and I don't see it. I mean, yeah, Penny was there, but, you know. I kind of want to see Mecha. I want to see that Mecha.
Internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show that'll put its hand on your shoulder and say, hey. So Spider-Man's kind of in an interesting spot in cinema, isn't he? The whole franchise has some of the best as well as some of the worst superhero movies ever made.
Dang.
Even if the memes are always top shelf. Look at Little Goblin Jr. Cry. But one movie I don't think anyone saw going as hard as it did, 2018's animated Into the Spider-Verse, telling the story of Miles Morales as he takes up the mantle of Spider-Man after his Peter Parker is killed. Thankfully, he gets himself a ton of help figuring out what to do in the form of Spider-People from various different universes dragged into Miles' dimension by the movie's big bad. What
Kingpin.
felt like it could easily have been a cynical cash grab turned out to exceed everyone's expectations. It's considered to be one of the best, if not the single best Spider-Man movie ever made.
It's beautiful.
By critics, it made a killing at the box office. It won all the awards. So when we all heard that it was getting a pair of sequels and Across and Beyond the Spider-Verse, let's just say that those movies had a lot to live up to. And thankfully, the recently released Across the Spider-Verse is great.
It is great.
When this movie first got teased, I was concerned that it was just going to turn into a cameo fest with too much fan service. And while it did lean in more on the cameos and fan service than the previous one, it also managed to be a worthy sequel to one of the best superhero films ever made.
Yes.
Even if that cliffhanger at the end did leave me a little bit disappointed. Also,
I don't know what you're talking about, MatPat. I really think me and Kevin enjoyed that. I'm not going to say what it was because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out there who didn't. Which, by the way, why are you guys watching this if you guys haven't watched the movie? Go do yourself a favor and watch Across the Spider-Verse. Trust me, it is a great movie. But fair warning, do small gulps. I genuinely thought I was not going to make it. I didn't want to miss a single thing, but I was struggling. But anyways.
I think this was a problem with the movie, but just one with the theaters that I saw it in having really bad audio mixing. I had a hard time hearing a lot of Gwen and Hobie's dialogue at various points. I thought it was just a me thing. You know, I am getting older these days, maybe my hearing's going, but then I started seeing other people bringing it up online. Anyway, here's hoping that they get the whole thing resolved. Even considering those minor hiccups though, the movie was a visual masterpiece, throwing us into multiple new universes and showing us hundreds, literal hundreds of new Spider-Men, each with their own unique visual aesthetics and styles. For me, the standouts had to be Spider-Gwen's watercolor world and the incredible 80s paper cutout animations of Spider-Punk. Also, biggest laugh clearly goes to the Lego universe, which turns out was animated by a 14-year-old? Kids these days, man, you guys are so talented. Without a doubt,
that's crazy.
Spider-Verse took all the ideas from the first film and turned them up to 11. Spoiler warning for Across the Spider-Verse in case you didn't figure it out by this point. After the events of several recent movies, including Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man No Way Home, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which, yes, Doctor Strange is specifically called out in this movie.
Don't even get me started on Doctor Strange and the little nerd back on Earth 1999-99.
Holes have started showing up throughout the multiverse. These have let bad guys slip into alternate dimensions and wreak havoc. In response, Miguel O'Hara, the sci-fi Spider-Man 2099,
Yep.
set up the Spider Society to help police the multiverse and bring all these villains home. But when Miles wants to join the Spider Society, Miguel refuses him at every step, because Miles is actually part of the problem. He unintentionally created the Spot, a multi-dimensional villain. And
Best
the
villain.
events of Into the Spider-Verse were never supposed to happen. Miles was not supposed to be bitten by the radioactive spider. His world's Peter Parker was not supposed to die. Miles was never supposed to take on the role of Spider-Man in the first place. What's even worse, that spider that bit Miles wasn't even from his universe. So Miles is the original anomaly that started knocking over all these dominoes. So to help
Yikes.
set things straight, Miguel and his Spider Society are trying their best to, quote, restore the canon, to make things right by ensuring that the big events that are supposed to happen to every Spider-Man across every world actually happen. And if they don't, well then the multiverse itself could collapse. You know, no pressure, but see, loyal theorists, I have a problem with his line of logic. It doesn't sit right with me given everything that we see both in this movie and throughout the wider multiverse that this movie sits within. I think Miguel is making a huge mistake here. I think he's wrong about the whole canon events thing.
Aha.
I also think he's wrong about Miles being the real danger of all of this. And that error is ultimately going to destroy everything that we love about every superhero movie if they don't set things right. We're not only looking at the collapse of the Spider-Verse here, we are looking at the end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So change into your Spider-Sonas, friends, and let's swing into it. Within the film, we're introduced to
Aha!
the
I
idea-
knew it, Miguel. You was. I knew it. Ever since Miguel was being so hatred towards Miles, I knew something was up. I knew something was up because I did watch Miguel's backstory and something felt off. Because, you know what? I'm not gonna say it. I don't want to say it. It'll probably be its own review.
of canon events. According to Miguel, these are fixed events in time that must happen for a universe to remain stable. Basically, it's the explanation for why so many different versions of Spider-Man across so many different stories all experience the same things. They had to happen for that universe to exist. Now, they don't outright give us an explicit list of canon events that have to occur for all the Spider-Man, but they do show us images of several others within the web of life and destiny. The one
Ah, come on.
Great stays across the USA.
Alright, let me see if it's showing this right. Yeah, it's doing right.
several others within the web of life and destiny. The ones I spotted included a spider bite giving someone superpowers, the death of an Uncle Ben-esque figure, teaching Spider-Man the lesson that with great power comes great responsibility, connecting with a love interest, sometimes with an upside-down kiss in the rain, a wedding to a love interest, a symbiote creating a nemesis, throwing the Spider-Man costume away, and being crushed by rubble before finding the strength to lift it. Gwen also mentions that in every other universe, Gwen Stacy falls for Spider-Man, and in every universe it doesn't work out, so that one may or may not be a canon event as well. But the big one, the one that applies the most to this particular story, a police captain close to Spider-Man dies, usually by trying to save a child from falling debris. This is where the main conflict of the story comes in. Miles's dad is about to be sworn in as captain of the NYPD. And obviously, he doesn't want his dad to die, but you apparently can't bypass a canon event, and Miguel refuses to let Miles leave to save his father's life. This is something that Miguel had to learn the hard way. According to Miguel, he wanted to be happy with a family, and so he found himself a universe where that universe's version of him had been killed. He then stepped in and secretly replaced his dead self. It sounds complicated, but basically he just pulled a Rick and Morty. In fact, if we're being honest, this whole movie is just pulling one big Rick and Morty, Spider Society, Citadel of Ricks much. It's not a bad thing, I'm just saying. Anyway, Miguel stepping in was an issue since his...
Nah, Spider-Verse did very well, unlike Rick and Morty, man. I'm sorry for anyone who likes Rick and Morty, but I just can't get behind it no more.
Death was considered to be a canon event in that timeline, leading to that universe collapsing. People were erased from existence, including Miguel's daughter, who disappeared in his arms. By the end of it all, the universe was gone, leaving Miguel devastated and determined to make sure that it never happened again. This threat also checks out in the movie, too. As soon as Miles saves Captain Singin' Mumbattan and bypasses the canon event there, a dark hole starts swallowing up that world. All of this sets up a great conflict between Miles and Miguel for the rest of the movie. Just like Miles, we don't want his dad to die. But just like Miguel, we don't want that universe to collapse either. But here's the thing. When I really sat down and started thinking about this, the whole canon events thing, I'm not buying it. First of all, I have a lot of questions about Miguel's story here. He claims that the universe with his family collapsed because he bypassed a canon event. So, does that mean that Miguel's death was a canon event? But who then was it a canon event for? Was he the Uncle Ben or the police captain in this situation? Or was he just some random guy? Was he the Spider-Man of that world? He has the powers in the title after all. Would that then mean that Spider-Man's dad death is a canon event. That shouldn't be the case since Miguel later yells at Miles for getting the Spider-Man of his world killed. And considering how much Marvel, Disney, and Sony want to milk this character until the end of time, something tells me that Spider-Man's death is not going to be a corporate-approved canon event that's going to happen all the time.
Nope.
Additionally, how many times has Miguel seen this actually happen? We only see the one instance, so is Miguel working with a data set of just one? That isn't enough test cases to make such a weird multiversal Big Brother organization that's okay with so many people dying. In short, it doesn't make sense. And the other canon events start falling apart too when you really look at them. Like,
Alright.
speaking of Miles getting his Peter Parker killed, didn't that disrupt every other canon event of Miles' universe? Shouldn't that universe have imploded? Or is that universe self-correcting around Miles? Given how much of an anomaly Miguel makes Miles out to be, that probably shouldn't be the case if Miguel is truly right in his hypothesis. Another easy example would be the symbiote.
I mean, yeah, I mean, that's kind of true. I mean, like, if Miguel, if Miles is truly an anomaly, if Miguel truly claimed he is, I mean, yeah, Miles got his Peter Parker killed, but I mean, like, Peter Parker's that nice of a guy. I mean, he's going to sacrifice himself for the greater good of the people. But I mean, like, if Miles not supposed to be Spider-Man isn't basically breaking the canon event, then wouldn't we see a black hole during the events of Into the Spider-Verse? Like, I know they didn't set this up. I know on this. I know it was the first movie, so they probably didn't set this up. But I'm just saying.
Attaching to someone and becoming a nemesis for Spider-Man. What's the problem here? Well, Across the Spider-Verse features a moment where the Spot briefly pops into the universe of the Tom Hardy Venom movies to steal some gum. But it doesn't seem like there's a Spider-Man in the Venom-verse for Eddie Brock
Nope.
to butt heads with, considering Eddie doesn't react to Spider-Man being unmasked when he briefly crossed over into the MCU during the post-credit scene for Let There Be Carnage. Another example would be Spider-Man connecting with and marrying their love interest. This problem comes with the Amazing Spider-Man films, which are directly connected to this universe through a cameo with Andrew Garfield. Sure, he fell in love with Gwen Stacy in his world, but after her death, he focuses all of his time and energy into being Spider-Man, as he explains in No Way Home.
You have someone? No, I got no time for Peter Parker stuff.
That is years without a love interest, without building any sort of a relationship, without a wedding, etc., etc. And yet, as far as we can tell, the world of the Amazing Spider-Man still hasn't collapsed nearly a decade after we last saw it.
Yep.
Thirdly, we gotta talk about the Uncle Ben moment. This death is supposed to be a massive world-shaking event that sets Spider-Man on his path, teaching him all about power and responsibility. No, it doesn't literally need to be a Ben Parker who dies. For Miles, it was Uncle Aaron. For Gwen, it was her friend.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace, Uncle Aaron. May your soul rest, man.
Peter Parker. For Miguel, it looks like it was his daughter. But here's the issue that I find with all of this. Tom Holland's Peter Parker operates as Spider-Man in the MCU for literal, actual years before he eventually has his Uncle Ben moment. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page here, the writers of the MCU Spider-Man movies have stated that Uncle Ben's death in the MCU did happen, but it didn't have the same impact on Holland's Peter Parker as the others across the multiverse.
What?
Instead, the importance of this moment was shifted onto Aunt May in Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, you might be thinking, hey, it happens eventually, so we're all good, but are we just gonna ignore the timeline here? In every other dimension that we've ever seen ever, this Uncle Ben moment happens within months, even days after he's bitten by the spider. And Across the Spider-Verse, Paviter Prabhakar has been operating as Spider-Man for just 6 months. And clearly, he's already had his Uncle Ben moment. The Maguire, Garfield, and Miles Morales Spider-Man have all had their uncles die within just days of getting bit. And yet
Yeah.
the MCU isn't on the brink of collapse because Spider-Man hasn't had his Uncle Ben moment as quickly as all the other universes. But the thing that really drove the nail into the coffin for me, one of the biggest of these so-called canon events has to be a spider biting someone and giving him powers. So that universe has a Spider-Man to begin with, right? Well,
Yeah.
we see the spider bite as the first canon event that's explained to Miles. And yet, at the end of the movie, when we visit Earth 42, the world where Miles' spider came from, that doesn't have a Spider-Man, and it's still there. Sure, it's not in great shape. There's a lot of crime, a sinister six cartel that seems to be running things, massive fires throughout all of New York City, but the world itself has not collapsed. Now, I can already hear plenty of you furiously typing away in the comments. Just because these canon events haven't happened yet in these worlds doesn't mean they won't happen. And the order of the canon events doesn't necessarily need to be the same every time. And believe me, I hear you. That was one of my initial thoughts when I was crafting this theory too. But yet,
Alright.
it doesn't line up with what we see in the movie. All thanks to that necessary death of a police captain close to Spider-Man bit that drives the whole conflict. Remember, Mumbattan starts collapsing immediately after Miles saves Captain Singh. Literal seconds after that event. If canon events don't have to happen at specific times, couldn't Captain Singh or another captain have just died later in the story of that world? And yet, here's Miles' world, which is totally fine. It didn't collapse when Peter Parker died. All of this tells
Exactly.
me that what the movie
So what
says about
happened?
canon events and the fallout of breaking canon is wrong. Miguel has misidentified the problem. What we're seeing in these movies isn't the breaking of canon, it's incursions, just like we've been seeing in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And that is way, way worse than any of these Spider-Men think it is. Now, if you dropped off the main MCU after Endgame, you might not know what I'm talking about here. We first learn about incursions in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. When
Yeah. Alright, we're going to talk about the MCU right now. The incursions, and we're basically going to be talking about the Beyonders. Am I right? Because, I mean, like, we did have this talk about the Beyonders.
Strange is brought before the Illuminati of Earth 838.
Even your arrival here confuses and destabilizes reality. The larger the footprint you leave behind, the greater the risk of an incursion.
Basically, when people from one universe cross into another, the two universes start getting pulled together. Everything starts breaking down until at least one of the universes is torn apart at the seams, killing everyone in it. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? This is an incursion, and they are no joke. We see what's left of a universe after its incursion, and it's a wasteland. It is a void of nothingness. This is such a big threat that the Illuminati think Doctor Strange merely existing in their universe is a major risk, and that he needs to be dealt with. But hold on, why am I connecting this movie to the MCU? Sony is the one that's making the Spider-Verse films, not Marvel. And that's correct. But Spider-Verse goes well out of its way to make sure that there is a connection established to the MCU. And it's not a blink and you miss a cameo or offhanded reference either. Like I said at the top of the episode, Miguel straight up references the events of No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness within the first 15 minutes of this movie.
Don't even get me started on Doctor Strange and the little nerd back on Earth 1999-99.
Earth 1999-99 is a designation of the MCU in Marvel multimedia. First called out in the official handbook of the Marvel Universe A to Z. No Way Home connected the older Sony films to the MCU multiverse, so the projections of both Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man also connect this movie to them too. The Spot briefly visits Mrs. Chen from the Venom movies,
Yeah.
the world also connected through No Way Home.
Yep.
And Donald Glover cameos as a variant of Uncle Aaron suited up as the Prowler, the same role that we see him play in the
Yep.
MCU. But the linchpin that 100% slots this into the Marvel Cinematic Multiverse now, when Miguel begins his explanation of the Spider-Verse to Miles, he projects a simulation of the multiverse. One that looks exactly like how the multiverse has been portrayed throughout the MCU. And I'm not just talking, oh, it kind of looks like it if you squint at it, I guess. This is exactly the same glowing, glimmering white threads branching off into multiple timelines. Just like what we saw in Loki.
Yep,
just
Loki.
like what we saw in Quantumania.
Oh, I didn't
Having
watch
all
that.
of these connections to the MCU, positioning this as part of the wider Marvel Cinematic franchise, means that we have to bring in the MCU logic here. Sony can't have their MCU cake and eat it too, even if they do buy two cakes. If people from one universe crossing over into another universe is something that causes incursions, that is what we're seeing in this franchise. And it explains everything. It solves all of the issues that we've been having. When Miguel crossed over into that other universe where he died so he could live a happy life with his family, he caused that world to be erased through an incursion. It explains why Earth 42, the world without a Spider-Man because our Miles got bit by its spider, is totally fine despite it breaking canon. No extra dimensional visitors have spent any significant time there, thereby avoiding an incursion. It also explains what's happening in Mumbattan. Miles, Gwen, Spider-Punk, and the Spot basically destroy a massive stretch of the city, leaving a giant footprint behind. The hole that opens up in Mumbattan is the beginnings of an incursion, one that the Spider Society is arguably making worse by trying to fix. And that's the bitter irony in all of this. In Miguel's desire to try and fix the problem that he wronged.
Dude, that's crazy. If you mean to tell me if it's an incursion and the Spider Society, the elite group, basically saying they're there to help is making it worse by just being there, that's crazy, Miguel. That's an L. That's an L, Miguel.
Identifies as breaking the canon, what's he do? He gathers spider people from across the multiverse into one place, and then he sends them on missions to realities that aren't their own. Every single time that he does that, the Spider Society is risking another massive series of these universe-ending events. In short, by trying to help the situation, by forcing things to fit a proper mold, to be the right, correct way, Miguel has made it exponentially worse. Not only increasing the risk of incursions happening throughout the multiverse, but by indoctrinating a literal army of spider people into simply standing by while innocent victims die. All in preservation of things being done the right way, the correct way. And thematically, this theory makes a lot of sense. The story that I suspect that the Spider-Verse franchise is trying to tell us is that anyone can be Spider-Man, but that everyone is gonna be doing it their own way. Everyone is gonna be doing it a little differently. Everyone's gonna carry that responsibility differently. But that doesn't mean that they're doing it wrong. You are your own person, and you can choose your destiny. You are not the product of a bunch of events that came before you. Miguel getting angry at Miles for messing up how things are supposed to happen, yelling at him because he's not supposed to be a Spider-Man, that could be a stand-in for a lot of the audience resistant to change. An audience who wants to see the same stories playing out over and over again the right way. Or that can also be a stand-in for where we are in society today, where certain classes of people are allowed to do things with their lives that others aren't just because they're right or correct. Just like how certain people can and can't be Spider-Man in Miguel's eyes. But Miles turns that entire idea on its head. Being told that he isn't supposed to be Spider-Man gives Miles the freedom, the permission to stop trying to be Spider-Man, to stop trying to think about what Peter Parker or Miguel O'Hara or Gwen Stacy would do, and instead to just be himself, to just be Miles. Like he says in this moment,
Everyone keeps telling me how my story is supposed to go. I'm gonna do my own thing.
and that right there, that is the most heroic lesson that any Spider-Man across any of the universes can possibly teach. But
that is my boy.
Spider-Man has to be right.
That's my boy Miles right there. That is great. That is great. Honestly, I hope that is the case, but let's be honest, I really do. Honestly, I don't care what it is, what's going to happen in Beyond the Spider-Verse. Maybe if they're actually going to pull this incursion thing out. But I'm just hyped for Beyond the Spider-Verse. Like, really. Like, I really want to see Beyond the Spider-Verse, but I know that's going to take a long while. Because, like, I'm pretty sure it took, like, what, 3 years to animate Spider-Punk? Anyways, guys, that's going to be the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like the video so I know you guys enjoy. Comment down below what you guys think. What you think is going to happen in Beyond the Spider-Verse. And subscribe. We're trying to upload daily. This is OneGamer54, signing off.